Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to Ferndale City Council meeting for Monday, November 10th, 2014. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Sherilyn, would you call the roll, please?
Council members Lennon, Martin.
Here.
Pollica.
Here.
Piana. Here. Mayor Coulter.
Here, yes, thank you. We have a quorum this evening, and Councilman Lennon is stuck at work. He might yet arrive, but we'll excuse his absence if he doesn't make it.
Okay.
If that's all right. Next item of business would be the approval of the agenda. Any changes to the agenda this evening?
Yes, Your Honor, if we may remove item 7C, which we'll come back to at a later date, and if we could change the order of the agenda to move the public hearing, item 5, after the regular agenda.
We can do that. Any other changes to the agenda?
I move that we accept the agenda as amended.
Support.
Moved by Martin and supported by Piana. Any discussion? Sherilyn, could you call the roll?
Council members Martin?
Yes.
Pollica?
Yes.
Piana? Yes. Mayor Coulter?
Yes, thank you. The agenda is adopted. Moving on to item number 4 is presentations, and our first presentation is the Ferndale Public Schools, and I believe we have the superintendent of schools, Mr. Pruitt here. Are you? Come on up and welcome. Amy, are you coming with him?
Coming teams.
All right. Good evening.
Good evening. How are you doing this evening?
Very well.
So actually, I'm going to have Ms. Butters present first, one of our school board members, and then I'll kind of carry the tail end of it.
Excellent.
Okay, good evening. I'm Amy Butters, and I'm here from the Ferndale School Board, and we'll start with the picture that we've got up on the screen tonight. This weekend, the Ferndale High School Drama Department is presenting Alice in Wonderland, and this is a picture from one of our rehearsals. And I wanted to let everyone know about that. That's this weekend, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. They're having performances. I've got the time, 7:30 on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday at 3 o'clock, a matinee. And Thursday, there's a bonus performance starting at 6 o'clock before Alice in Wonderland. There's a play called Rewritten, and it's a student-written play. One of our seniors, Katie Akers, wrote the play, and the kids are putting it on. And so it's the world premiere of this play. So I would definitely encourage you to come out for that special event. I do have tickets here if anybody would like to purchase tickets tonight. They are available from any cast member. So my daughter is in Rewritten. So that's one thing going on coming up this week. I want to backtrack a little bit and talk about some things that have already happened. Our swim team had, what was it? What was the event? The state tournament was this weekend for the girls swim team, and our senior Ty Fernari got senior of the meet, and she won, excuse me, the 200 IM and the 100 meter butterfly event, and so we're very proud of her, and we want to congratulate Ty on that great showing. And then also at Ferndale High School, our volleyball team last week won the districts, and they're moving on to the regionals, and so they play Clarenceville tomorrow, 6 o'clock, and so we'll be cheering them on tomorrow at the regional tournament. So we're very proud of our Ferndale High School volleyball team. Over at University High School, our seniors just recently spent a day down at Wayne State. University High School has a partnership with Wayne State University, and the seniors spent the day there getting to know the campus, having meetings with their mentors, and then that opens the door up to their regular classes that they have down at Wayne State. The seniors go down as part of this partnership with the university. So that happened. I know the seniors are very excited about being on the college campus. And so that's something that I wanted to make sure the council was aware of. Moving on, just a couple other things. One thing I want to be sure to draw your attention to is Ferndale Public Schools has redone their website. And so ferndaleschools.org is an address you be sure want to visit. It's completely redone, and it's very crisp and user-friendly, and lots of great things going on that website. Yes, I mean, look at that. Councilwoman Piana has called it up on her screen right there. It looks really nice, and so that's another thing that we're really proud of, and I'm trying to get the word out about that. It's a great place to go for information about our district.
Wow, that is nice.
Okay, meeting that's taking place on Wednesday. I don't know if you were going to announce this. Oh, okay. Wednesday is our Superintendent Advisory Committee meeting, and it's a town hall style meeting. There's actually 2 times. There's one at 9 o'clock in the morning from 9 to 10, and then there's another one in the evening from 7 to 8. That's this Wednesday at Roosevelt Primary School. And Superintendent Pruitt will be there to talk about our strategic plan, give updates on that, and just update everybody on his goals for the district. And I encourage everyone to come out for that. It's a great way to learn more about our district. Couple more things here on the back. I want to offer my congratulations to Nan Kermuller and Karen Toomey and Jennifer Latash for winning the election last week, last Tuesday. They will be continuing on our school board, and I'm looking forward to having them continue on the board with us. We have a really great team, the board and Superintendent Pruitt. We're feeling really good about what's going on in our district, and I wanted to congratulate them. And lastly, the Ferndale High School Marching Band, of course. A lot of people already have heard about this great news, but they did move on to the state championships down at Ford Field a couple of weekends ago. They placed 4th, which maybe somebody might say, 4th, but they've been first before. But the thing about it is 5/10 of a point, right, I think, was what separated the top 4 bands. So in my mind, it really was a 4-way tie for first. And so we're super proud of these kids. They also got the General Effect Trophy, which often, usually goes to the #1 band, and so it went to our band this year, which was something we were very proud of. And our drum line also got the highest score of all the bands in our category. And so we're really proud, and I wanted to just make a special thank you to everybody in the community who came out for the send-off for the band. This was on Saturday evening, 2 Saturdays ago. The kids got in the buses and they were heading down to Ford Field, and the Ferndale Police Department provided an escort out of town for them, and people lined the street and wished them well. And it was just a great way to show support for these kids. It's a great marching band program. So I just wanted to extend thank you to the community for that, for their support. So I'm going to move it on over to Superintendent Blake, and I wanted to also express for the board, I wanted to make sure that everyone knows that we on the board are so appreciative to Mr. Pruitt for his leadership during this time of transition, during this beginning part of the school year. And as he's, of course, you all know, he's new in his position, and so we have really been happy with how things are going with this transition, and I'm going to let him take over with what he wants to talk to you about now.
Thanks, Amy.
So the $20 is back there for you. So just wanted to be here today. So we had some events in the school district during the last week and making some changes to programming. So I wanted to, first explain what we were doing, and secondly, make myself available to answer any questions from the council or the community. As you know, with the our Digital Learning Center, which is in the Taft Building in the Dales community, we had an incident on Thursday with a student, and we've been working for the last month and a half to relook at that program. And with everything in the district, what I've told all my staff, the board, everyone, is that achievement comes first. It's always about students and achievement. So as we have sort of evaluated that program since the start of the year, we weren't necessarily getting the achievement out of that program that we knew we could. That also being said is looking at safety, security of students and staff, and then also looking at financial health, because that program is down from 2009-10, when it was 943 students, to now 343 students. And last year it was 550 students. So as we know, each student, sadly enough, is a dollar sign from the state, so that affects the overall budget. So looking at achievement, sustainability financially, and then also safety and security, we've been devising a plan to make some changes. Thursday's event moved up the time frame on that. It was going to roll out a couple weeks from now, but we decided with that event that we wanted to move sooner. So today I was down at the DLC as well as some of our police officers, because we have a regular police liaison there, as well as our regular security and staff. And we informed all the students that the program is going 100% virtual. It was started as a virtual school. It's kind of worked its way into being more of a seat time school, but if you think about it, if you have to sit in front of a computer screen because all the classes are on computer, and you want to sit in a school building for 6 days, 6 hours a day and look at a computer screen, you're going to get off task, no matter how focused you might be. And Avondale, Oxford, many other school districts have 100% virtual schools, which originally the Digital Learning Center was devised to be. So students are going to go completely virtual. What it means is that the teachers are going to do kind of what they've been doing now, but contact online, contact via email, contact via phone. If a student needs individual assistance, then they'll make an appointment with the student. This will lessen the number of students within the physical building during the day. Some of our issues come from students that are not there to be students always, but are there for the social aspect of being in a school building. So we want to take it back to students that want to get an education. Because if they want to graduate, we want to help them get there in a timely manner so they can move forward. So during this week, we are handing out the computers, which is a requirement of the state for virtual academy, which we've already had to do via the law and the seat time waiver. The school's been doing that for 3 years now. So we've had students sign up for individual time slots in the next 3 days. So not all students are in the building at the same time. They come in to get their computer, get what they need to do in order to access everything, and then they leave from there. And then the teachers will be required to make contact on a weekly basis and just call in students that will need assistance, but by appointment only. So you just can't show up when you want. That will extremely lessen the traffic of the students that are coming into the building, so much so that we'll be looking in terms of budgetarily at the end of November that we'll be closing that building for the remainder of the year and then moving the students over into the Jefferson Center building over in the Oak Park side of the district. Because we have enough room in that building, Taft can fit upwards to 700 students. There's only 90 students in that building at any one time. And looking at budgetarily in 2 office staffs, 2 maintenance staffs, that allows us to make some cuts in order to right-size our budget based upon our per pupil allocation. So that will happen December 1st. We will have an ongoing custodian that's there that's making sure the facility is being kept up as we evaluate what to do with the facility for the next year. So there is no choice being made of what that's going to happen in that facility. We're evaluating all our buildings and all our programs of where the best placement is for everything. So that's just kind of giving you a short update of what we're doing with that program and with that building at this time. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Other questions, Council?
I have a few, if you don't mind.
Yes, sir.
Do you anticipate the impact on the size of the student population in this program going from a quasi-virtual to completely virtual? Do you expect shrinkage? Do you expect it would grow?
I expect that there'll be students that drop out. In the last I ran the numbers this morning. In the last 14 months, we've had 776 dropped students from that program. The state does allow, once you become a drop student, a different funding model kicks in, and we have through Oakland County or Oakland Schools, there's a group called Grad Alliance that will engage those students that drop to try and get them to graduation, but it's a per-month funding that happens. So if a student decides to drop, we then refer them to the system in the county, which is also honestly a virtual system, but it's just under a different funding model. But there is, last year we had 100 student attrition from September until January. So I would expect that we'd have some of the same, possibly some more.
And the appointments that the students are having with their teachers or coaches, if you will, they won't transfer over to Jefferson until the end of the month?
Right. Okay. After Thanksgiving, we'll be officially transferred over to give us time to do the move properly.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem.
Other questions?
I just have a comment. I wanted to thank you for your personal outreach to me and talking to me about the changes affecting the Dales Group. The Dales Group was started as a response to what was happening in the neighborhood, and frankly, I find your engagement with us completely refreshing and well needed. The school board members have been great to work with, but really the administrator is really who helps makes the change, so I appreciate you really diving in and figuring out what will work best for the school district, but also the community. Can you talk a little bit what will happen to the properties, what the school district plans to do with the vacant properties?
Sure. So, and first off, as a new superintendent, it's very important to me to reach out to the different areas of the community and learn the different areas of the community. Because anytime there's a school building in your neighborhood, that always has an effect on your area. One of the things we're doing right now is that we've engaged Plant Moran to do a comprehensive assessment of each building, 5 to 10 years. What sort of work does this building need? How are the boilers? How are the roofs? There's a number of different things. As our bond ends, what does 5, 10 years look down the road? We know that we have at the height the district, I believe, was about 6,000 to 7,000 students. We're a little under 3,000. So we need to do an assessment of our buildings and of our programs. So that's actually part of the strategic plan also, in looking at our elementary and our secondary programming and how we look at buildings. One of the things I'm working on right now, with a variety of other things, is actually doing maps of each current building where all the students come from, to show if we have students in this building here, do they come from the area, do they come from different areas, how many different areas are they coming from? So we can do a little more of a population study, so we can kind of look at the best use. So I would be premature in saying that we have any long-term plans for the buildings, because I don't know financially where they're going to be long-term in terms of what it's going to be to cost us to maintain them, as well as where's the best place for students to learn. There will always be an alternative education program in Ferndale. There will always be students that need that. But I want to make sure that it's a program that students that can't learn in a traditional high school have the opportunity to get a good education and get an opportunity to graduate and move forward and into the world of work. I think there are some things that we need to do to shore that up better. So that's something that we'll be looking at during the course of the year.
Thank you.
Well, and I want to also express my appreciation for your being here and for the outreach that you've done since you've been here. As you work through the plans for what to do with the buildings, I hope you'll engage our city manager and others just in those conversations. Those will have an impact on the communities, obviously, and the neighborhoods. I trusted you would. So thank you for that. And thanks for being here tonight.
Oh, my pleasure. And we'll always continue to collaborate with the city, and as we move forward with both the council and the school board and administration of both entities, what's the best for our community in general, and what creative ways can we use the space within the city to not only keep the people in Ferndale but attract more people to Ferndale.
And my last question is the most important. How long do we keep those lawn signs that say Ferndale Pride up? Amy, I feel guilty to take it down, but but just all the time, just
once
never take it down.
Once the snow covers them, it's time to take it down.
All right, fair enough. Thanks, Superintendent.
Thank you.
All right. Our next presentation, do we think, Dan, do we?
Is there someone from Stella's family here?
Is someone from Stella's family here? Maybe we'll switch the order, just in case they come at 7:30. Sometimes people think that we start at 7:30. So why don't we do the Halloween Beautification Awards next, with representatives from the Beautification Committee.
Well, good evening. To shift gears a little bit here after that. Well, I'm Joe Spain. I'm with the Ferndale Beautification Commission.
And I'm Suzanne Rowe. So this was our second annual Beautification Awards, and although we didn't have as many homes decorated this year, the ones that were, we got to meet most of the homeowners, and we had a blast. It was just so much fun.
I bet.
So Joey's going to go through who won.
So our first winner, we had four, one from representative of each quadrant of the city. The first one is 140 East Maplehurst. You can see that they did quite a bit of work on the home. We've got the graveyard there with lots of light shows. The noises were eerie, so it was pretty spectacular. Notice this one, which is pretty spectacular, a little dining set there.
It's on the porch.
This was on the porch. And then, of course, you've got a headless postman there. So it just really set off the entire neighborhood. So this was with Warren. Can you spell that? Warren Warshie. Are they here tonight? They were all the awardees were invited tonight. We do have a family.
He was.
here.
That's one of the people that we were able to speak to, and we went out Devil's Night. So he told us on Halloween night that he has smoke machines and dry ice that he uses. I mean, it was pretty incredible. So I wish he was here, but he's not here.
So that was 140 East Maplehurst. Our next winner was 518 West Woodland. And this one, you can see that there was a lot of flashing lights, and this is with Jason Crane was the homeowner. Lots of skulls and ghosts out there. A big inflatable.
Like you walk through that.
You had to walk through that, so that was kind of the entrance towards the house. So as trick-or-treaters came, they had to go through that, which is pretty amazing.
Then sounds went off.
Sounds went off, and this is a good side view of that. So they went through the castle to get to the porch. Lots of work went into this.
So.
And again, that was Jason Crane. Our next winner, 1791 East Troy, which is Mark and Sandra Scott. Aren't they here today? No? Okay. You can see the front view of that. Lots of great lights, lots of animatronics there.
Spooky.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, of course, the goblin there that was flying across the porch. And then we moved to 1268 West Troy, which is the Whalen family, and they are here with us
They are here.
tonight, so we're glad that they're here. The kids will have a great story to tell tomorrow in school. So you can notice that there's a hearse right in front with the big spider web right there. Decorations were all around the house, which I know that they've had a lot of work. They did a lot of work with that. You've got the huge cat there right on the front porch.
Wow.
And the huge Frankenstein that was there. So so this is the Whalen family. We like to present them with our certificate and hopefully Mr. Mayor, a picture with you.
Okay.
Excellent.
Sure. I don't know, I'm pretty scared now.
Go on up. Oh, they're great.
Okay.
We'll get you next. Sorry, did I not get directions? Jason, right? Jason Crane?
Okay, we'll get Joe in there. Beautification work, that's wonderful.
You say cheese?
Gotta say boo, right? Well, thank you to the Whalen family. And actually, yeah. Perfect. And actually, we do have another family that is here tonight. The Cranes are here. So we would like to welcome them on up for a photo as well. 518 Woodland.
Oh, that is. How long did it take you to do that?
Get up there. Yeah, I just did. So. Excellent. We just want to thank all of the residents who did a lot of work with these awards, and we'll be doing it again next year. And also, we'll be doing our Holiday Light Awards coming up in about 6 weeks too. So keep an eye out for us on the bus pretty soon. So, all right, thank you.
And it's fun on the bus, so we're looking for two more members. So if there's anyone that's considering, we're not asking for that much in requirements, just fun.
Yeah, if you're interested in joining the Beautification Commission, you can go on the city's website for the application, and we can go from there. About a 5-hour-a-month commitment.
Excellent. And thanks, you guys, for doing all the work, though. Appreciate it. Very nice. One more round of applause for our winners. Thank you. So, Dan, I don't know if our folks are here, but I think it's still worth reading. Why don't you introduce the next presentation?
Sure. The next presentation is a proclamation recognizing Stella Plaskonka in honor of her 100th birthday. She's a Ferndale resident, and I'd like to read the proclamation that we will pass here tonight. At a regular meeting, it's a City of Ferndale proclamation honoring Stella Plaskonka in honor of her 100th birthday. At a regular meeting of the City Council in the City of Ferndale of Oakland County, Michigan, held in the Council Chambers at 300 East 9 Mile Road, Ferndale, Michigan, on the 10th of November, Mayor David Coulter, on behalf of the Ferndale City Council, extends the city's congratulations to Stella Plaskonka on the occasion of her 100th birthday. Stella was born on November 11th, 1914 in Hamtramck. She was married to John and raised a large family. They moved to Ferndale in 1938, where Stella has lived in the same home on Silman Street ever since. Stella Plaskonka is a credit to this community, and it is with heartfelt appreciation that we celebrate her achievement.
Excellent. So we'll make sure that Stella gets that, and if she does arrive, we'll recognize her at that time. Thanks, Dan, for bringing that one forward. I don't think we have a lot of 100-year-old residents. That is a milestone. All right. We've moved the public hearing until after the regular agenda, so we're going to move on to call to audience. This is the opportunity for you in the audience to come and address council on any item any topic that you choose, other than what's on the agenda, because we'll let you speak to that when we get there. Up to 3 minutes to say your piece. Come on up, say your name and your address, and let council know what's on your mind this evening. Anyone that'd like to address council for a call to audience. Good evening.
Hi. My name is Rebecca Jones. I live on Albany. On November 1st, I was walking through Geary Park when I was attacked by pit bulls. I was walking my dog on a leash. There was a man there who had 3 dogs off leash. He warned me to stay far away because they had issues, but they still ran up and latched onto my dog's throat and arms. And when I tried to push them off my dog, I got bit on the right hand and the left forearm, and my dog needed to have staples. And it's the second time in 10 months that I've been walking my dog and been attacked by stray or loose dogs that haven't been either on a leash or in the yard like they should have been. The other time happened on Pearson Street right after the first of the year. And that time I jumped on top of my dog to protect him, and I ended up needing stitches. And I know that there are other people who lived on Pearson who said that they were afraid to let their children play outside because of those dogs. And one woman said her dog was also attacked by those dogs and had to be euthanized because of its injuries. So what I was hoping for is that the City Council and the Police Department and the Oakland County Animal Control Division could offer some kind of a self-defense class for people on how to respond to a dog attack, how they could respond to protect themselves and to protect their pets and children. And because you never know what you should do when it happens, because it happens so fast, but it's very dangerous very quickly. And yeah, I've taken self-defense class for human attackers, but I don't think that that the problem of dog attacks is going to go away. So I think that people should get some kind of training to know what they can do, what's the best thing to do, what's the worst thing to do. And I mean, I think it would be good for everybody, not just dog owners, but anybody who walks in the city. You know, what do you do if you see a stray animal? So I have actually a list here of questions that I would like answers to on how I could have handled my situations better. And so I think that this might be something for the city to consider. And I can leave you guys a copy if you want it.
Please do.
So, yeah, please leave it with our clerk. That would be
Okay.
great. Thank you.
Then I just want to say one other thing to end it on a positive note. To say thank you to the Department of Public Works, because I've never had a chance to thank them publicly, but I think that our Department of Public Works does a really great job, and especially during the winter, cleaning up the snow. I mean, we always have the best streets around, so thank you for that.
And the director is sitting right next to you.
Congratulations. Yeah, great job. That's all. Thank you.
So, Rebecca, let me just say, first of all, I'm really sorry about the episode that you went through. I feel very badly for you. Our police chief is here, and our our interim city manager is here filling in for April, and we'll listen to your suggestions, and we'll take that under consideration. And if you give Sherilyn those questions, we'll seriously consider that. I'm very sorry about what happened.
All right, thank you.
If you could please leave your contact information with her, we'll also make sure to get back with you.
All right, great.
Is it? You have a question?
I have a question.
Oh, Greg, you have a question?
Yeah, I was wondering, I believe her name was Rebecca.
Rebecca, yeah.
Yeah. Did you file a police report?
I did, in both
Okay.
cases. And
Okay.
at least, in the first instance on Pearson, I believe that the man was charged with a vicious animal or violation. I'm not sure where that went. And then this other time, I mean, they said that they'll be following up with me. But
Okay.
I mean, that's aside from, I still think that the city, that we can do something to self-defense.
And I agree with you. My concern is that they were, in the Geary Park incident, they were off the leash, and that's illegal. So they should at least be ticketed for that.
I agree.
So, okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca, for coming. All right. Christina, you snuck in. Good evening.
Good evening, and thank you for having us. Christina Shepard-Decius, Ferndale DDA Executive Director, here to do a little bit of promotion tonight for our Holiday Hoof event. I'm not sure where the cameras are anymore.
That works.
Okay,
Yep.
good. So we have Holiday Hoof, which is a obstacle course run and fun walk. It's on November 22nd, so it's coming up very fast. We have early bird registration that's ending at the end of this week, so that gets you a little bit of a discounted rate. We also have a discounted team rate, so if you have a team of 10 or more, it's $45 a person. Early bird registration for an individual is $50. Same day and regular registration is $60. So that will begin starting this weekend and go until the day of. We're really looking forward to this year. Should be a great event. We've made some changes to improve it, and still a lot of fun tying in with Festivale put on by One-Eyed Betties. So with your registration, you get one free entry into Festivale, and you also receive a commemorative cup. You receive also a set of glow bands, basically the reflective bands, because we're trying to improve the safety for our runners out there, because it is at night. It starts at 5:30 p.m. And we encourage everybody to get dressed up and get lit up. We had many runners last year that were wearing lights and wearing costumes and all sorts of fun stuff. So we are looking forward to that this year. You can register online at active.com, as well as you can find out all the information at downtownferndale.com. we are in dire need of more volunteers for the day. So please, those who don't want to run but want to help and participate, we encourage you to volunteer your time. For a few hours of volunteering, you too can get into Festivale. So we're encouraging it that way. And you can get all the information on volunteering online at downtownferndale.com. So I believe that is all I want to cover with that. We do have a whole lineup of holidays that are coming up, and a laundry list of those. Small Business Saturday on November 29th, as well as then Holiday Ice Festival on December 13th, and Merry Moonlight Madness on December 18th. So we're busy little people downtown right now, so end of the year. So get out there, enjoy the holidays, and visit downtown Ferndale.
Great, thank you. Great reminder.
Yeah, sure, sir, too.
All right. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Mayor. On October 21st, 2014, I received written notice that this file in front of me has been slated for a hearing on January 12th, 2015, docket number 14-006034, Paul A. Kish versus City of Ferndale. The notice reads, having given due consideration to this file in the above captioned case, finds that the case has been scheduled for an in-person hearing. Most of you are familiar with this file, so that will be heard with the state. Thank you.
Anyone else like to address council during call to audience? All right, if not, we'll close call to audience. We'll move on to the next item of business, which is our consent agenda. Consent agenda items are items that we consider routine and we enact in one motion unless something is pulled by council from the consent agenda. Let me read that now. Item A is the approval of the minutes of the regular and special meeting held October 27, 2014. Item B is the adoption of the resolution approving the amendment to the intergovernmental CATV agreement, subject to amendment being approved by the other 10 ICCA member communities prior to December 31st, 2014, and authorization for the mayor to sign said amended agreement. Item C has been pulled from the consent agenda. Item D is the approval of a request to execute the City of Ferndale Title 11? Shouldn't that be, all right. Non-discrimination plan as submitted by the Director of Human Resources. Is it 11? 6. I don't know my Roman numerals, apparently. Item E is the approval of the specialized services contract for fiscal year 2015 and authorize the mayor or designee to sign the contract. Item F is the approval of the first amendment to contract with Technical Logistic Corporation of Romulus at an estimated 3-year cost of $111,060 and $138,825 to be charged to the Sanitation Fund Refuge Disposal Account, and authorization for the mayor and city clerk to sign the first amendment to the contract. Item G is the approval to purchase and install the Datto Cyrus 10,000 with a 3-year warranty and monthly cloud backup service to be charged to said account as submitted by our Chief Innovation Officer. Item H is the approval to receive the city manager's written parking enforcement designees authorized to enforce metered on-street and off-street residential parking zones within the City of Ferndale. Item I is the approval to add the amount on the list of delinquent accounts to the December 1st, 2014 tax bill as a lien against the respective properties. And finally, item J is the approval of the bills and payrolls as submitted by the city manager's office, subject to the review of the Council Finance Committee. What is council's pleasure on the consent agenda this evening?
I move that we accept the consent agenda as presented.
Support.
Moved by Martin and supported by Polika. Is there any discussion on the consent agenda, either by council or by anyone in the audience? All right, Cheryl, would you call the roll, please?
Council members Polika?
Yes.
Piana?
Yes.
Martin?
Yes.
Mayor Coulter?
Yes, thank you. The consent agenda is adopted. Now moving on to our regular agenda, item A is the consideration to amend Chapter 3, Alcoholic Beverages, Article 2, Vendors for Consumption on Premises, Section 3 through 17 of the City of Ferndale Code of Ordinances. Dan, are you going to introduce that item?
I'd be happy to introduce that item, Your Honor.
Thank you, sir.
Before you this evening is a proposed amendment to the city's ordinances regarding on-premise licensed establishments, as well as the city's resolution as it relates to consideration of new applications for new on-premise and transfer applications for on-premise licensed establishments. Council had adopted this amendment and resolution about a year ago to provide additional control, local control, with respect to new applicants seeking to serve alcoholic beverages on premises, and had certain criteria and requirements associated with those proposed establishments. Before you this evening is a proposed amendment which would eliminate, through the definition of on-premise licensee, references to brew pub, microbrewery, small winemaker, and small distillery or club license from that review committee. And the rationale with respect to this proposed amendment is that those types of on-premise applications, there is a requirement in the city's ordinance and resolution that they have their revenue derived by at least 50% of food sales, and certain distilleries and small winemakers don't have food sales. So there would still be a opportunity for city council to review those type of applicants should they come to the city, but the formal review committee process that's set forth in the ordinance and the resolution would not be required to be met. If there's questions, I'd certainly be happy to answer.
Are there questions of council?
Yes, so we're basically removing a second layer of review for these applications if they meet a certain type of criteria of 50% or less?
It takes them out of that secondary review committee, the ability for council to still review those new applications would still be available to council. It's that additional level of license review committee review that would be eliminated, and it would take those applications, those potential applications, out from the requirement that those applications have, which is a food minimum. The revenues derived from the establishment currently would require them to be 50% food-based. So it eliminates from a distillery the requirement that they serve food, for example.
And Dan, is there a legal definition of a brewery, brew pub, microbrewery, et cetera?
Yes.
Those are legally defined?
Those are defined right in the Michigan Liquor Control Act.
Okay.
So is it fair to say then that we would be removing an applicant, for example, like Bee Nectar, as well as through the size of something like WAB that does have happens to serve, a good portion of their business is food as well because they're a microbrew?
You would be the microbrewery, a new application for a microbrewery would not have to go to the license review committee and would not have to meet a food minimum with respect to consideration by council. Council would still have the opportunity to weigh in on whether it wishes to approve that application.
Okay, but there's
the mandatory mandatory requirement in the ordinance and policy of a minimum food percentage would be eliminated.
With no condition to size, I'm sorry?
No, go ahead.
Correct. Okay.
So, again, I like to keep things simple. If ABC Distillery wanted to open up in, let's say, local kitchen moved out and they wanted to open up there would be no review by the
current review
board,
committee. Correct.
But it would still come to council.
Yes, with respect to a application for the approval of the local legislative body to the license, that would still come to council.
Okay.
And who is on the review committee now? Can you?
It is the police chief, city manager, city clerk, and myself.
Fire chief,
Excuse me, Fire Chief.
CED director, and the DDA if the license is in the DDA area. So really, it leaves the resolution and ordinance regarding Class C liquor licenses. Those are the big licenses where that WAB actually has one, even though they are a microbrewery. Their license is a Class C. They also have a Class C license. So it differentiates those Class C licenses and those redevelopment licenses would still go through the procedure, but these specific smaller licenses that are defined by the MLCC through state law would be taken out of that procedure and taken out of the requirements to meet those criteria that we set for the redevelopment and Class C licenses.
May I ask, though, by removing them from that process, do we lighten up on an intensity of background checks or anything? I mean, what do we, what
No,
else
the
would
state
we-
still requires police investigation and local law enforcement approval as well as legislative approval for these licenses.
So if I summarize, we still have all the same approval points and an option to review and approve a liquor license and be able to monitor licenses that have been not well maintained with their businesses. So we're not giving up anything, we're just removing a layer that staff is currently an assessing body prior for it coming to council.
I think that's correct, and one of the current requirements for a on-premise license applicant, which is a minimum percentage of their revenue deriving from food. You're eliminating that requirement from those category of applicants.
But then, doesn't that open up the opportunity for, like the example I just gave, of a distillery opening up in our downtown without providing anything other than distilling liquor?
Well, that's right from the standpoint of the approval. The definition of the distiller provides a certain quantity of spirits that they would be producing, and as a component of that, they're allowed to have a sampling room on premises. So it would be allowing that type of use. Again, the council would still have an opportunity to weigh in on the first instance whether or not to approve that applicant. Okay. It just would not be applying all of the current standards that are required for an applicant to that subcategory of on-premise consumption.
But the primary or only standard that we're not any longer requiring is the food standard, correct?
The food standard and the process of that
and
review committee's
yes.
Review of that applicant.
Right.
Through the chair, may I ask the police chief's opinion? Who sits on that committee, correct?
I do. My opinion regarding
The action we're being requested to take?
I believe it's adequately will serve our needs for that committee and those that we don't have. I mean, I would like a little bit more control, but I think that the state has taken a lot of that from us under the current legislation.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any way that, and maybe this is actually a question for Christina, is there any, my concern is the downtown. My concern is that we open up ourselves the opportunity for businesses to move in and bring liquor licenses, not serve food, and basically we become a lot of bars. Because right now,
it has to be, as proposed, it would have to fall into one of the definitions that are being carved out, a distillery. And so it can't be a bar. That would be.
Because then they'd need the Class C license or redevelopment license.
Right. I think that's a great question, though, Greg, because I was hitting the thinking, too, is like, how does this policy actually work on a day-to-day basis. And I understand that staff wants to reduce a layer that they see as unnecessary. Now, given the changes in the state liquor license changes, they make it more easy, they reduce their burdensome administrative processes to make it easier for businesses to get liquor licenses, right? So I just don't understand some of these implications of the policy implications by removing, and I think the control issue is an important one.
Yeah.
It still has to come here for us to vote. If we let the downtown go that way, then it's our own fault, because we still have to approve it here.
Okay, I think that's the number one concern for me. So do other cities have this type of administrative committee in place? Is this a normal review committee to have as a city, and they're removing them too because of the state liquor license changes?
The city, if I could, Councilwoman, the city adopted this again when the state no longer was looking for local input, and the city decided that it wished to still have a level of review associated principally with on-premise licensed establishments, which are Class C and redevelopment license. There is a subcategory of on-premise consumption that distilleries are allowed to have, and so the thought of staff was that that level of review that is necessary and desired for bars and restaurants that want to serve on-premise alcoholic beverages isn't necessary for that subcategory of applicant.
Okay, let me summarize again, if I may.
Go ahead.
So council put this in place a year ago, right? Right? Staff has now applied the changes and have worked the policy with new applicants or changes to liquor licenses, and has said, based off of our interpretation of this policy that we approved a year ago, it's redundant.
It should, I think I would suggest that it should be narrowed. It should be narrowed as to its scope.
Redundant to a subsection of the people that the policy impacted. It's not wiping out the policy. There's a subsection of those folks that it applies to that it's.
So today, a microbrewery or a distillery, based on our policy, has to have 50% or more in food service. Right. And to me, that's what's kept out a distillery from opening up in the old Rent-A-Center. Because it's cool and trendy to have this distillery here where we can just serve samples, and then all of a sudden we have 4 distilleries wanting to open up because we have no policy in the downtown. My concern right now is the downtown area. We have no policy that says you can't pursue that. And if someone comes up and asks that they want this, I don't want to have to deny someone over something that doesn't, a policy that doesn't exist. I don't like you, so I'm not going to support this happening in the downtown area.
Councilman Pollock, if we could have Community Economic Development Director Derek Delaport speak about its impact.
And maybe I can clarify a little bit. When we made the change about a year ago, previously under this policy or this set of criteria applied to the redevelopment of the Class C licenses. So it's always applied to those previously. What happened was when we made the changes to try to bring ourselves into more control under the state law, we unintentionally swept in things that weren't included before, things like Schramm's Meadery, and then the distilleries that are not in the downtown got caught up in having to meet these criteria. All we're doing is taking them back out. They previously weren't required to meet this criteria. You still have all the controls in place to prevent any type of liquor license, whether it be distillery or otherwise, from being approved for the downtown. This just takes back out of the review process and the necessity to meet the criteria that were put in place for the redevelopment in Class C, to which it was never intended, which is distillery, micropub, meadery, things like that. Also, the zoning ordinances take care of a big chunks of whether and what size production facilities are allowed within the downtown. So all this does is take back out what we didn't intend to sweep into that requirement in the first place.
Okay, so you threw out a wider net than you needed to and realized that you needed.
This is, and I'll let city attorney or the city clerk. This is to remove, we didn't intend to sweep these into this, but when we changed the language to be more restrictive, to take back some control of the state when they started to change the rules, this was an unintended consequence of this. This just puts it back the way it used to be, and that is micro distilleries, micro pubs, places like that were never intended to go to the Liquor Review Commission. Only those larger redevelopment and Class C licenses that have the impact of a bar, nightclub type impact on the downtown. And that's my understanding of it.
So maybe before you leave, so let me ask the opposite question, because we can look at this from every angle. I get the food component of this. Why not just eliminate the 50% food requirement, and what's the harm in letting them go to the commission?
In truth, I mean, if distillery, excuse me?
He said that's the other option.
Yeah, I mean, it is an option. It would include the committee reviewing non-downtown type licenses, distillery licenses, things in the industrial area that it really wasn't put in place for. But there's not really a downside to that either, I don't think, in the long term.
Okay, thank you.
What's council's pleasure?
For discussion purposes, I'll move that we approve Ordinance 1157, amending Chapter 3 Alcoholic Beverages, Article 2, Sections 3 to 17, for 3-17, approval or transfer of license for consumptions on premises, and adopt the resolution regarding approval of new and transfers of on-premises licenses.
Is there support?
I'll support it for discussion purposes.
All right. Yeah. What else what other information does council need to be comfortable with making this change?
I don't like removing a level of bureaucracy in this instance when it's dealing with liquor. And I don't know, I mean, as someone who's on the ordinance committee, you know, we get things piecemeal, by mail, you know, we have to read it. To me, it doesn't seem like it takes a lot of time. But again, I'm not on the Liquor Review Board. Is that what it's called? Liquor Review Board?
And that does, Derek, get to a question of mine, or maybe it's Cheryl Lynn. Is this simply a matter of it just kind of being a lot of unnecessary work? Is it a lot of work?
No. The reason for suggesting this ordinance had nothing to do with staff not wanting that commission to meet. That commission was put into place to oversee the far more complicated licenses, the Class Cs and the redevelopment, to make sure that we weren't getting those nothing but bars in town. So that required a lot more review and work with the applicant, making, you know, talking about their size and their layout and how much food and all of that. But when we changed like Derek said a year ago, when we changed the ordinance and the wording from specifically like Class C on-premises licenses to just all new and transfer licenses, because we were just trying to make the language simpler, and that gave us the ability to weigh in with the MLCC on even licenses that they did not require our local approval on. The unintended consequence was then you're saying that a small distillery who can only produce less than 60,000 gallons per year and can do tastings and can sell its spirits on premises, and that's where it caught us, because they have the ability to sell on premises, then it fit under this wider criteria that was put into place to really protect the downtown from becoming just nothing but nothing but bars. We wanted there to be a restaurant component as well with those.
I'd like
So
to
there's not a problem with reviewing it, but we don't want to put this onerous burden on manufacturers to also have to provide a food and restaurant.
Well, I think I also would like to point out, as one of the things we discussed, is the criteria by which the Liquor Review Committee does its work. Most, if not all of it, does not apply to a distillery and/or a micropub. Those criteria are put in place specifically to determine if a larger bar restaurant type operation fits within the community. Most of them, if you read the criteria in there, especially the food and some of the more restrictive one, pedestrian movements, don't apply to these size facilities. So the criteria by which we do our work is not, and previously has been determined wasn't relevant to these type of operations. So even if they did review them, the standards we use to review them don't necessarily apply to these type of licenses. And that's why they were excluded in the first place.
I guess I have a question. This ordinance shall not apply to a brewery, microbrewery, brew pub, small winemaker, small distiller, or club license. Is that basically one checkbox? Like, you could check that and be any of those within the license, or are these specifically unique licenses?
Those are each separate, unique, specific licenses with a specific definition.
So,
needing one application for each type to the MLCC.
okay, so a small distiller, someone who's applying for a small distiller, for example, couldn't make wine on their property?
No.
Okay.
They can distill.
Not without another license.
Exactly.
Okay.
So
I guess I'm a little different now that I know that it's very narrow. We're dealing with very narrow categories.
we are, and that, which went to my question of are these things defined under state law, and they are. And I guess I am, if I'm hearing, what I'm hearing from staff is that this was an oversight and an extra layer of review that did not exist a year ago and is not really required now. So I guess I'm comfortable personally with staff's recommendation to eliminate.
And I would reiterate that the intensity of the background check is still maintained.
It's still, that's right.
There's
Yep.
not a significant public safety issue created by passing this, from what I'm hearing, and please correct me if I'm wrong. It does take out a layer of hoops, if you will, that some folks have to jump through a hoop they never really were designed to fit through.
Exactly.
You know, and so, and the oversight still remains with this body to approve these at the end of the day. So I would be supportive of the changes.
Did this go through the ordinance committee prior to it coming to council?
It was forwarded to the ordinance committee. There was not a formal meeting on that, simply staff, this issue came up relatively late, and there was not an opportunity to convene a meeting of the ordinance committee. The ordinance committee members have indicated general concurrence with the draft, but there was not a in-depth study session on that.
I supported the changes within the draft only because I wanted to have the conversations here. And I think Mike felt likewise, but unfortunately he's not here.
Remind me who's on what the ordinance committee, who's?
Greg and Mike.
Greg, Mike, and yourself?
And how many businesses have been impacted by this policy since it's been in?
None so far.
Well,
None so far?
Well, there's been several that have gone through the, are you talking about the
Yeah,
past year?
who got snagged into this process, unintended?
Unintended.
No, the last one we did was B Nectar, and that was prior to this revision, prior to the current incarnation.
There have been several applicants who have gone through the review process since it's been imposed, but none that would fall into these carve-out categories that would not have come through.
Is it fair to say we might have one coming up later on the
I
agenda?
think that's fair to say. There was one that's next on the agenda that brought this to our attention.
Well, and you
We
don't
want to
know,
review it.
you know, I also could make the argument, you don't know who you haven't heard from because we've had it in place. You know, if you do research, you're going to go open someplace, you find out you can't do it here.
Any other?
I'm
Comments
disappointed
or
this
questions?
wasn't brought to council's attention prior to coming to the dais here. I don't remember being mentioned in any of our council briefs or anything like that.
In all due respect, it was in the October 31st brief.
Yeah, but
Would council like us to provide more detailed?
I think a discussion with the city manager or something about this would have been helpful.
The city council need more information to move forward this evening.
I just feel like it has broader policy implications, even though the intent there to remove bureaucracy is important.
Well,
I don't know.
originally I did. I have to agree with you. Originally I did, but I do understand now that if XYZ comes in and wants to open a distillery in the old Elegance by Design, you know, they still have to go through every other check and balance except this one level of review with Councilman Martin and staff.
Okay. Other comments or questions? We do have a motion, right?
Yes,
Martin and Piana. Sherlyn, would you call the roll, please?
Certainly. Sorry, I have to find my place here. Council members Piana,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Polika,
Yes.
Mayor Coulter.
Yes, thank you. That item is adopted. Second regular agenda item B, consideration of a special land use for 1696 Wordsworth. Derek, are you introducing that item?
Yeah, let's prepare for the other one first. Good evening. We are here tonight. Recently, we had an application for a special land use at the subject site. The applicant, it's a single-family home, zoned single-family, and the applicant currently runs a residential daycare at their home for less than 7 children under a state license. Under our ordinance and state law, those type of facilities are exempt from local zoning and operate specifically under their state license only. When the applicant or when the application comes forward and one of the residential daycares wants to move to a different license that allows 12 or less children at a residential daycare, our ordinance requires a special land use for the facility. That process is similar to all the other special land uses that the city reviews. It requires a public hearing at the Planning Commission level, a review of the business operations and the site by the Planning Commission, and a recommendation to City Council. The applicant did submit such an application. They have gone through that process. I'm going to ask them to come up. Right now it's the Hahn family. They've run a residential daycare at this location for quite some time, have been working on the state for an expanded license to allow 12 children or less. The Planning Commission did review it, did hold a public hearing at which there was no opposition to the expansion, vetted the site, approved the site plan, and unanimously recommended approval of the special land use to City Council. So I'm going to let them talk for just real quickly. I know this is their favorite part. They enjoy it so much, and the chance to do it over and over again has been fantastic for them. But give them a minute to talk about their operation and what they did in relation to their neighbor and how they operate, and give you guys a chance to ask them any questions. So,
Great.
Come on up.
Thanks. Thanks for coming.
Hello. I've been doing it for a year and a half. My neighbors are okay with it. I'm signing something. They're okay with it. I have a big driveway. All the parents come all different times. They're not all together. What else? I don't know.
Got a privacy fence in the backyard, so we're secluded, kind of.
The Planning Commission, they did at the Planning Commission level. They did talk about the screening of the site. It does meet the minimum requirements by ordinance for play area. Planning Commission was satisfied with their hours of operation, the location for pickup and drop off. Like I said, they did vet the site pretty well at the Planning Commission level, but we are here to answer any questions you might have.
How long has it been operating?
Year and a half.
A year and a half. Is there a history of complaints or from a law enforcement perspective?
Our neighbor's sitting right there if you want to ask them questions.
Yeah, we didn't receive it. We haven't received any complaints on file, and actually the applicant did a nice job. They got signatures on a letter of support from pretty much all, if not all, of their immediately adjacent
That's helpful. Thank you. Okay. Questions of council?
You really want 12 kids at your house?
For the longest time.
If I may?
Yes.
I sit on the Planning Commission, and I feel that the Planning Commission members thought this was an appropriate use, particularly with their location next to a very large park, and they use that as an extended outdoor play area with the children that they do watch. And I think there's not enough adequate, affordable home child care services, and so I think this is a good process for business owners like yourself who want to expand their child daycare services in a reasonable way.
All right. Motion would be in order. Yep.
I'd want to thank you for going to at least 16 of your neighbors and letting them know what you were doing and getting approval, signature approval from them all. I noticed all of them are on Woodsworth. Did you happen to communicate with the people behind you? No?
Well, we got the
Are you friendly with the people behind you?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I would point out, they did receive direct notice.
Yeah, we would have noticed.
Of the public hearing and expressed no opposition.
Yeah, I figured if there were issues, they'd be coming here.
So a motion would be in order.
I move in the matter of 1696 Wordsworth Group Residential Daycare. The City Council approves the special land use based on plans submitted, subject to the following findings. Do I need to read them all?
As presented.
As prepared.
Support.
All right. Moved by Piana, supported by Polika. Any other discussion, questions, comments from the audience? All right, Sherlyn, would you call the roll?
Councilmembers Martin?
Yes.
Polika?
Yes.
Piana?
Yes.
Mayor Coulter?
Yes, thank you, and good luck with your business. Thanks. All right. Regular agenda, item C is the consideration of Hilton Road resurfacing. Derek, are you going to introduce that item, or is that you, Joe?
I do. I'm going to keep my introduction as brief as possible. It's a rather lengthy staff report, but basically the request before council tonight is previously in 2011, the city submitted for and received federal aid funding for the resurfacing of Hilton Road from 8 to 9 Mile. That resurfacing includes a complete tear-up and resurfacing. The federal aid funding application was submitted to resurface the road as is, and that's the award was based on that request. Subsequent to that, and over the last year or so, City Council is aware that staff and the city has embarked on a citywide process that deals with the adoption of a complete streets transportation plan. That included some very specific recommendations for that section of the Hilton Road corridor. As we started to move through design and the initial construction or the additional plan development process for the road, we started to look at what it would take to implement the recommendations of the Ferndale Moves or the Complete Streets Plan into the project. And although those recommendations are fantastic, they're also expensive, and they were also based on trying to find ways to make that section of Hilton Road meet the intent of the Complete Streets Plan while working with the existing width of pavement. At the end of the day, that included the incorporation of medians, some mini roundabouts, mid-block crossings, pedestrian actuated signals, and a lot of other things that went into that plan. Basically taking the cost of the plan from, in today's dollars, what was an estimated $1.2 million for the resurfacing project, city's total cost, all the way up to approximately $2.3 or $2.4 million. So basically increased the cost of the plan $1 million. So like we said, although the recommendations are fantastic and meet the intent, we also are very cognizant of the availability of road funding going forward over the next couple fiscal years, and what that meant to the ability to do other federal aid funded projects over the next few years. So what we did was, actually quite recently, is the DPW director, the city engineer, Giffords and Webster's, myself, the consultants who did the Ferndale Moves plan, sat down and started looking at other options to try to achieve the intent of the Complete Streets Plan, and be more cost effective, and ultimately, at the request of the DPW director, maybe look at ways that we could do it that reduce long-term maintenance and operational costs as well. What we finally decided upon was a plan or the idea came on, or the idea was presented, that maybe we have too much pavement for the amount of cars we have on Hilton, was basically the premise. The average daily trips on Hilton in that section is below 3,000 cars. The road is basically, by all standards, including AASHTO, designed for a much higher capacity, many more cars. So it was a moment where we decided, well, maybe the answer is to reduce the pavement width of the road and go from 3 lanes to 2 lanes, increase our impervious surface, make it easier to cross, slow traffic down, and incorporate and leave the bike lanes in as is right now, with still enough room to incorporate parking where necessary and other improvements. That does a couple of things. One, it is still more expensive than the initial today's dollars cost of a $1.2 million resurfacing. That is mostly due to the adjustment of curbs and some other things. But what it also does, because of the long-term reduction in asphalt and concrete, requires the reduces the long-term operational maintenance cost of the roads by about $400,000 every 15 years. So it seemed to meet all of those initial criteria we had. We started that process and review with Giffords, with the DPW director. I'm going to ask Norm Cox to come up real quick, too. We have a real quick, I promise, it's 5 slides. Yes.
Just something you said, though, the reduction of maintenance of $400,000 over 15 years. What's the lifespan of a resurfaced road like that, where you see those savings?
15 years.
All right.
So when we resurface it again, basically we have 20 feet less of concrete that we have to replace.
Okay.
Plus the reduction in width, we did a quick estimate on stormwater, just because of the impacts roads and impervious surface have on stormwater. Every 10-year event, which is it's not every 10 years, you have a 10-year event quite often in a season, reduces the amount of stormwater runoff by about 50,000 gallons. So it had the net impact of being cheaper long-term and environmentally friendly, even without doing anything really fantastic to it. I promise this is only a couple of slides, but I'm going to ask Norm to walk you through real quick. It gives you an impression of what the existing road looks like, what the Ferndale Moves plan looked like, and then what we're proposing.
I think Derek did an excellent job kind of giving the overview of why. And if you look at Hilton right now, especially these sections where we have the center turn lane, through lanes, the bike lanes, and the on-street parking, it's very wide. And when we looked at the Ferndale Moves, the complete streets approach, we said, well, your bike facilities are fairly decent right now, but from a pedestrian standpoint are one of the biggest challenges, the comfort for both walking along the road and also crossing that large expanse of roadway.
Is that Hilton?
That is Hilton.
Yeah.
We are kind of astounded about.
Welcome to my neighborhood.
I mean, I've never, I'm on it all the time, but
And this is down on the southern end down here, but there are
Chesterfield is actually, you're at Chesterfield.
If you look at that road, does that say drive 30 miles per hour? And does that say redevelop here? And it doesn't. And so we're trying to make it a lot of different elements. So the Ferndale Moves said, okay, let's use that, as Derek said, the existing pavement. Let's do something nice down the middle, a smaller median, try to add some landscaping, look at some small roundabouts where the existing signals are, primarily for a traffic calming element, and these will be, the signals are at University and Silman. Curb extensions, to kind of where you had the on-street parking to make it easier to cross. And one of the things that we looked at when we were seeing these groups, like, well, if you start running curbs up and down this median and you start doing curb extensions, you basically have about the equivalent of the entire length of curbs with new curbs. And we're like, sitting around and go, go. What can we do what we're trying to do?
It's funny you told them that was okay, but the traffic circle was not a problem.
Not so much.
So if our intent is to make it easier for the pedestrian, if we just narrow this road and take the curbs in, it'd be about the same amount of curbs as we were talking about before, still have the bike lane, and it's now much easier road to cross. We could still have curb extensions where there's on-street parking, but a lot of times we're now a 2-lane section. Now, again, Derek said it's less than 3,000 vehicles per day. We have lots of gaps in traffic. It's not a busy roadway right now.
Yeah, I mean, this gives you any idea. We took the left-hand turn lane out of Livernois, south of Marshall, to 8 Mile. That has almost 7,000 cars a day. So we're dealing with less than half of that here, and nowhere near as many significant left-hand turning movements.
So you have, just so I understand this, so you have going from right to left, that's parking, bike, lane, bike?
No,
Correct. And if one of the things that it's sketched out, and I say broad brushes right now, one of the things we need to look at is, do you need all that on-street parking that you currently have? If it is, there's plenty of room. If we do not need it, if there's lots of off-street parking currently accommodating all the needs, we don't need to put that in. So every time we narrow that, that's that much less salt, that much less snow clearing, and actually landscaping is cheaper to maintain than it is asphalt. And then also, if you notice, we have the power lines along the west side of the roadway in a very narrow space between the sidewalk and the road. Now we have a little bit more room where we get some landscaping, get them out from underneath the power lines and green up this roadway.
But to clarify, the cost estimates in the proposal here does not include landscaping, correct? It's construction, engineering, and...
No, it included.
It does? Okay.
Yeah.
How much would it be to get rid of those those telephone lines?
Yeah,
Very expensive.
Yeah.
Bury them.
More than the Ferndale Moons plan. Yeah. And I do want to clarify, I mean, we're here at this point because we think we have a feasible plan. We haven't put the final pen to paper. It's being reviewed by TIA. Obviously, we need to have some conversations with the police chief as well as regarding the design, where there's need for left-hand turning movements. We just felt it was appropriate at this time, before we go that far, to make sure that Council 1 was supportive of the lessening of the width, if we can demonstrate it and go through the capacity analysis. And 2, because it does cost a little more than the originally, or significantly more, $600,000 to $800,000 more than the originally federally aid-funded project. So we thought this was an appropriate time to come and make sure we were on track with our line of thought.
But there is, just to be clear, so there's no left-hand turn lane, so that's going to...
Correct.
And Chief can talk about that, but that's going to, impact traffic when that happens, so.
Yeah, and we so far, like I said, we did the same thing on Livernois and with 7,000 and feel it's significantly left. I know Chief's kind of getting blindsided by this a little bit tonight, because we haven't had a chance. We still would have to go through, if council blesses this, go through the TIA and the capacity analysis process to determine that it does meet all those safety and warrant requirements. And we're confident it will. But we're kind of doing things concurrently here because it's we're trying to make sure this goes well and gets out for bid at the right time.
One thing I just point out, and it relates to Derek's comment on warrants. There are 2 signals right now on University and Silman, and in this proposal right now, we're looking at replacing those with what are known as rectangular rapid flash beacons for the pedestrian crossing. Those signals, we just do not have enough traffic. If we were to do a study today, say, should a signal go in, you wouldn't get that. They would not meet that requirement. Plus, a signal is a very expensive thing to maintain, and this will be a way to have a very acute notice. If someone's trying to cross the road, the flashing beacons are there, so that would solve that solution, or solve that issue.
Actually, the light at Silman is gone. It's been gone for about 5 months, 6 months. Yeah.
It's been on flash for over a year, and then we removed it about 5 months ago.
Yeah.
So is the maintenance on the lights in your $400,000 maintenance savings estimate?
The lights included in the $400,000 cost? No. Yeah, that's not even included in that.
Okay, thanks.
So it would go up significantly if we don't have to maintain those anymore.
But, I don't know how many more slides you have. Are we?
That's it.
Oh.
I think. I
promised it was short. We just wanted to show a couple of pictures.
I guess my question is it not premature for us to be, I mean, you're literally asking for an expenditure and an approval of this project without a traffic or a TIA assessment of it? Would that not, does that, what would it?
This is normally where, in fact, we're trying to make sure council is inserted in this project before we spend the effort and time and go out to bids for these. If, with a significant change like this, if it's not something you guys are going to be supportive of. The motion is just to tell us it's not for external use. It's more just to tell us that you're comfortable with the budget and the cross-section, and then we go forward with the bid and the capacity analysis stuff.
So you just want to know which package with bells and whistles do you want to pursue?
Yeah, we don't want to go forward with this through that process if you guys aren't supportive of it. It wouldn't make any sense.
Well, let me ask this. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, but how do I know if I'm supportive of it if we don't have a traffic analysis? Like, 'cause that's an important
you can be
consideration.
assured that if it doesn't meet the warrants, that we're not going to be able to do it, and we'll either go back to have the existing cross-section or come back with another one. So it's not as if this one doesn't meet the requirements, that we're just going to make up another one on the fly and not come back. So if it doesn't meet those requirements, it'll be back here and we'll be talking about a different cross-section at that point.
So may I ask, last time we went out for a bid on a road, we were shocked at the dollar amount that it came back at. Are we confident this time we're closer to the mark?
I hope we're closer to the mark. We had originally estimated this project at about $1 million in 2011. We bumped that up to about 1.4 million now.
Okay.
So we've re-looked at the estimate and the market conditions, and included the additional unit prices to that work.
All right, thank you.
I have a question. I have some questions. During our 9 mile, I asked if there was a shortage of cement, and lo and behold, there's an article in Freep today about the regional shortage of cement. So I'm wondering if that's going to impact our pricing as well.
Can't answer that exactly. Hopefully next year there won't be a shortage. I think last time I talked about some significant projects that happened in southeast Michigan. Took a lot of cement. I don't think the cement suppliers were quite ready for all that volume. The Michigan Department of Transportation led a lot of projects in a very short time frame. So there was a shortage of cement, still happening. I don't think it'll be here next summer, but of course I can't guarantee it.
All right. Well, I have some questions about the actual package of street elements, because we can't afford the Cadillac version. We're going for a lower model. a more affordable model of streetscaping to improve the street, right?
Well, I would like to say, I don't think this is a matter of lessening quality. When we did the Ferndale Moves plan, sometimes you don't have all the information available to you to make decisions on individual segments. The more we looked at cars, truthfully, and I'll let Norm comment, I mean, there's some aesthetic things in that plan, but functionally wise and safety wise, we believe this works just as well as what was put in Ferndale Moves. And when you factor in the increase or the lessening of the impervious surface and the increased stormwater recharge, I'm not so sure this isn't the Cadillac and the right way to go based on the number of cars. Okay. When you factor all that in, it may well be on equal footing. Maybe not as aesthetically pleasing, but functionally, it's every bit as safe, and long-term, because of the environmental improvements, I think it's just as high a quality project.
Is there an opportunity to put in buffered bike lanes later, or are we reducing the width of the street so much that we can't put them in?
It's an option. Right now, the bike lanes that are shown here are larger than you would have as your minimum standards. You could easily put in buffered bike lanes, but then we're widening the pavement again, and then we're bringing in some more maintenance costs with the pavement markings. But I'd like to just kind of go back to one of your earlier questions of, when I put in that Homer Simpson dough, it was really, why didn't we think of this in the first time around when we did the Ferndale Moves? If we start looking at what we came up with all the curbs and stuff like that, this is actually a much more reasonable approach, and actually it's something I wish, had we thought of initially, and the cost and the curves, this would have been into the plan. So this wasn't so much a tone down, but a second look at things with, as Derek said, more facts.
And I mean, as buffered bike lanes go, yeah, we can fit them in, but again, we go back to the number of cars here. I mean, the buffering from the bike lanes is as much about safety because the number of and the proximity of motor vehicles and the speed of them, like along East 9 and Livernois, where you have higher speeds and more cars, they work fantastically, and I think council knows my opinion on them. I'm just not sure they're necessary here for the trade-offs. And paint's expensive, costs a lot of money to maintain, And the green space we get by narrowing it up and keeping the landscape space on the exterior, I'm just not sure what the small number of cars here, they're 100% necessary here.
And going back to the original thing, our pedestrians are probably the thing that needs the most improvement here.
Right.
With filling the lengths, better buffer, more trees between the pedestrians and the roadway. So I think that's where we kind of thought the major focus should be.
Well, there's a lot of people who bike this and who have told me they feel very unsafe biking it, and it feels like a wind tunnel because there isn't a lot of buffer between buildings and
No, it's all
trees.
telephone poles.
Which don't block the wind very well.
I think this will have a significant traffic calming effect with the trees, the narrowed lanes, the lane widths narrowed. We think this will improve this significantly.
And I don't see in here, does this include this current proposal? Does it include bioswales or no? No.
This one does not include bioswales. We are reserving the opportunity to include some rain gardens in appropriate locations.
So this is option 4 on this list, correct?
Correct, yes.
And then landscaped, it just means grass, right? Grass and trees, not actual planting and flowers.
More landscape trees, not a lot of planting.
Okay.
Mostly trees and grass, yes.
Mostly trees and grass.
Correct.
I want to go on record that I know that staff's recommendation is option 4, which is the road diet with curbs and gutters. I personally would like to see option 3 pursued, the road diet with the bioswale and the rain gardens, specifically because our residents off Hilton seem to be the ones, especially south of 9 Mile, seem to be the ones that are affected with rain or water in their basements when it we've been having that issue in that area for the last couple of years, and anything to reduce the amount of water going into the sewer system, I'd like to see us pursue.
Part of the reason we are not recommending that, and we could certainly go back and look at it again, 90% of the city has soils conducive to bioswales. In this section of the city, you have clay. We're not sure, and in talking with Scott, we're mostly confident that bioswales would not work here without some significant change to the soil profiles underneath the road. Bioswales only work when you have permeable surfaces underneath them. We have a significant clay issue here and are not sure, even if they're installed, that they'll work properly. And the engineering accompaniment that would have to go with them as a safety backup, we can look at it again. I'm not saying we can't. I mean, I'm all in favor of, we put them all over the city, but this is one of the few locations where we have some serious doubt whether it's functionally and engineering-wise is a good idea in this area of the city.
Can we then pursue looking at permeable surface instead?
It would be the same reasons would be a prohibitive or preventive measure to permeate.
I thought the bioswale was just a balloon that.
No, it's anything. It allows infiltration and groundwater recharge in space. So whether it's a permeable asphalt or a bioswale, all of it allows water to pass through directly underground. And what we have is a clay barrier that would have to be re-engineered or removed to allow that water to continue to go down. Now, we have built in the possibility of some rain gardens, which allow some of that, but it would have to be in very specific locations and only if the soils allow it. To do full-fledged bioswales and remove the curbs along the entire mile corridor, we're afraid we would have to do so much accompanying engineering, a backup, that if it didn't recharge, that we would lose control over where the water goes, and we'd have to put in piping and systems to catch it if we had an overflow. And then the long-term maintenance and to make sure it functions is, I'm all in favor of them, and I just don't think this is not the best location in the city to try to do that.
Okay, well, I'd like to see that pursued because it's one of the worst areas that we have of people having issues with basement flooding, regardless of it's a 100-year storm or a 25-year storm.
Either way, with this section, you're doing there's a real significant reduction in impervious surface. When you start talking 50,000 gallons per 10-year event, you can compound that out. And we are having a significant impact on the amount of water that hits just by the removal of the impervious surface. And that's part of the reason we agree with this cross-section as well.
Will we see a more detailed plan about where parking will go? You provide on-street parking where needed. So are you going to tell us where it's needed?
Certainly. I mean, we're going to go back and look and make sure, as we go forward, where we think those carve-outs need to be based on not just existing businesses, but future development as well. And yeah, absolutely. We'll come back. We can bring the final cross-section back when we're done.
I was going to mention that as well, because it's not just about what's there now, but so with an eye towards what we hope to do in the future, it may be worth having some there that are not required today.
Absolutely.
I would assume that businesses would have input that.
I would assume so as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then I was a little confused with the write-up of all the funding, about how we're actually, the project budget of 1 million or 1.8, is that all coming out of one fund? And is that all covered by grants? And what portion of it is covered by grants, and what portion are we actually paying it out of our fund? I couldn't figure that out.
It's all coming out of major roads. And the grant portion is $487,000 in addition to the 1.8. The 1.8 is city's cost out of major roads.
Well, again, I didn't think that we were approving spending this. We're approving investigating this further, correct?
You're reviewing these 4 options in front of you and telling them that this is the direction you'd like to go in.
Okay.
I believe they can.
What would be the next time we would talk about this?
Well, no, hold on, let me clarify. When the city submitted for federal aid funding, it's the question of accepting the funding, I think, has already been, and I'll defer to Scott, that was prior to my time. That's when you submit the road for the federal aid funding, you've requested the funding on the city's behalf. Originally, that was $987,000 in city's cost. In today's dollars, because the difference between 2011 and the process, that's bumped up to between 1.2 and 1.4 million in city's cost. What we're asking for is to spend the additional money to do this cross-section. But the decision on accepting the federal aid funding, I believe, was made in 2011 when the projects were submitted, before, long before.
So at that time, it was just resurfacing the road?
Correct.
Okay.
It was a $987,000 city cost with just a straight resurface of the existing cross-section.
Okay.
Correct.
What I believe I've been hearing city council say is that you like the direction that they're going and you're willing to consider providing them instruction on what direction to pursue, but you would like a follow-up update with a more detailed analysis. You said you had some questions about the long-term parking, so I guess with the more long-term, is that what I'm hearing?
Just to clarify,
with more
through the chair, we are making a $600,000 decision today, right? Saying we like the yeah, okay.
Correct.
Right.
Right.
We have the project has to go to bid, and soon. I mean, this is a recent revelation. I mean, if not for us desiring to make a cross-section change and avoid resurfacing the road as is, without coming back, this would have just gone out for bid.
Sure. Yeah.
Because of the process. The only reason we're here is because we believe, and because of the adoption of the Complete Streets Plan, that the city has said we wanted to look at this in a different manner, and before sending it out of bid, this is our recommendation of a different manner than the standard resurfacing. Otherwise, I don't believe it wouldn't even be here at this point, correct?
And what's the status of the Major Streets Fund? What is the impact on the Major Streets Fund? Where does that?
We have over fiscal years 15 and 16 an anticipated $1.7 million in projects. We're within about $150,000 in the Major Road Fund. All of those projects have a 15% contingency built into them. So we've met with the finance director and city manager and believe we are comfortable with the projects that we have already received federal aid funding for. After that point, the city's going to have to make some decisions about where funding for the major roads is going to come from.
So to clarify, we're within $150,000 of the old estimates, or the one that includes the additional $600,000 here today?
The additional $600,000 and revised costs on the other projects.
Right.
We went back and revalued. We looked at the whole of all of them over the next 2 fiscal years, and those numbers are based on our best guess or our best estimate of costs in today's dollars.
Thank you.
Any other questions of council?
No, I'm just disappointed. I interpreted the dollars wrong in terms of what we were going to get from the county.
Oh.
I thought it was more than what they, which is why I got a little confused. And disappointed.
A motion would be in order.
I move that City Council approves moving forward with the federal aid funding project for the Hilton Road Corridor, 8 Mile to 9 Mile, based on the reduced cross-section and a projected budget of $1,856,900.
Is there support?
With, yes, with the recommendation that staff look at option number 3 for bioswales and rain gardens.
Thank you.
Moved by Piana, supported by Martin. Other comments or questions? Sherilyn, would you call the roll, please?
Yes. Councilmembers Polika?
Yes.
Tiana?
Yes.
Martin?
Yes.
Mayor Coulter?
Yes, thank you. That item is adopted. Thank you, Derek. Thanks, everybody. All right, now moving to our public hearing. We have a public hearing for consideration of a distillery license for Fish Hook Distillery. Who is introducing that item?
I will do that.
You'll do that, Sherilyn?
You bet. Okay. Rufino Valentine is applying for a new small distiller license for his facility at 965 Wanda. State law defines a small distiller license as one that allows the manufacture of spirits, including brandy, not to exceed 60,000 gallons annually. A small distiller may sell spirits to consumers at the manufacturing premises for either on-premises consumption or takeout. Local law enforcement approval as well as this local legislative body's approval are both required by the MLCC. We've talked about the amendments to Chapter 3 of the Code of Ordinances. That's now in place. And under the current resolution, the prior resolution, a public hearing was required. So we went ahead and noticed this as a public hearing tonight for this small distiller license. The application to the MLCC is attached, and the applicant is here.
And I noticed it said that we didn't have a police investigation report. Do we now?
We do not yet have that. That is a separate separate form that goes to the MLCC. So even if council approves it, if that approval does not come through, the MLCC will not consider the application.
Okay.
Okay. So we still have time for the police to complete their investigation.
Okay. So with that, first let me open the public hearing portion of this item. Is there anyone from the public that would like to address council on this item this evening? All right, seeing none, we'll close the public hearing portion. Rufino, how are you, sir?
Good to see you, Mr. Mayor.
Good to see you. Why don't you just tell us a little bit about what you got going on?
Well, so this is the, I saw you, I think, last month about the expansion of Valentine Distilling. We're in 7 states now, several countries. We just shipped to Europe. I think we talked about that last time, but in addition to that, we are now talking with some national brands to actually produce and co-pack their brands, which we would not be able to do at the facility that we currently have. That's part of the plan with the new facility, is to not only expand our new brand, expand the states and countries that we distribute in, but to also co-pack and produce for other brands, other companies.
Talk a little bit about what your intention is in terms of on-site consumption or
so this place is,
carry out?
Yeah, I mean, we're not really going to have any of that. I think, you know, initially what we're talking about is maybe having tours once a week or something like that, but it's not really going to be like the facility that we have now. It's not going to be a bar or not even a tasting room, really. I mean, this is a straight-out production facility, production and storage, you know, facility. So we're getting into the real distilling operations, I think, now, rather than just kind of bar, tasting room sort of thing.
Yeah. Okay.
Garden fresh salsa. Think, you know,
Yeah.
real manufacturing.
Yeah.
That's what we hope.
Well, that's
to
why I
do,
was struck,
actually.
I mean, I love the building on Wanda, but it doesn't strike me as a place that people would want to go to, have a cocktail after work.
Yeah, especially, we're way in the corner of that whole building too, way around back.
Right.
But
Questions of council, comments, or questions, and then we would need a motion.
I'll make a motion to recommend the Michigan Liquor Control Commission approval of the application from Fishhook Distilling Company, LLC, for a new small distiller license to be located at 965 Wanda Street, Ferndale, Oakland County, Michigan.
Support.
Moved by Martin and supported by Pollock. Again, I'm going to ask the question only because it's on here. Here it says, if the police department's investigation is concluded favorably. Does that not need to be part of our motion?
The Liquor Control Commission, if there's a contingency, won't accept it.
So it's covered either way. That's fine. Okay.
I only have one question.
Yes.
Was this reviewed by the Liquor Review Board?
It was not.
It was not, okay.
That's why we moved it on the agenda.
Yeah, I see that.
Yeah, see how that works? Yes. Any other questions or comments?
No, just thank you for your continued investment in Ferndale.
Yeah,
Great having you here.
Good luck.
Yeah.
Sherilyn, would you call the roll, please?
Council members Piana?
Yes.
Martin?
Yes.
Polika?
Yes.
Mayor Coulter?
Yes, thank you. The item is adopted.
Thank you.
Gino. All right. Next item of business is call to council. I'm going to go out of order a little bit because I think that our city clerk has an announcement that I think trumps all the rest of our announcements. So, Sherilyn, I'm going to let you go first so I can get it over with and get my tears done before the end
Wow,
of the meeting.
I was not prepared to do this yet. I have let council know, and I have told our city manager that effective the end of the year, I am resigning my position with the city of Ferndale in order to take part in an adventure out of state. New Worlds in Milwaukee, and I don't know where that's going to lead me, but my significant other has a wonderful career opportunity there. So we are, like I said, we're going on an adventure, and I will be here till the end of the year, and I will have more to say, but I've said this so many times to council, and I mean it from the bottom of my heart, that it has always been a privilege to work for this city and for this and preceding councils. The residents of the city are so blessed to have elected representatives who have the intelligence and the passion and the commitment and the foresight that this group does. And so, like I said, it's not just been a pleasure, it's really been a privilege, and it will be very hard to leave this job. It has been the best job of my life, and I'm not sure that I will ever find anything to match it. But so thank you for everything, and you'll still have to put up with me until the end of the year.
and happily so.
And if I may report on the election,
yes, please
quickly?
do.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
The election ran very smoothly. We saw a small increase in turnout this time. We saw a very significant increase in the number of people voting by absentee ballot. But we had 44% turnout, which was very good. Things ran smoothly in the precincts. The state sent out teams throughout the state to do in-depth line surveys preceding the 2016 presidential election to see what improvements can be made. And they went to precinct 3 at the Digital Learning Center, which that's just going to be another challenge to solve. We're losing that precinct. And also at the high school, and both of those chair people just got rave reviews from those committees. They had been to other polling locations earlier in the day and said that ours were running the smoothest of any they had seen. So I was very proud of our inspectors for that. I have to thank my staff, our Deputy City Clerk Marnie McGrath, Barb Miller, who splits her time between elections and community and economic development, and it never fails that when we're prepping for an election, we need her 100% of the time, and Derek needs her 100% of the time, and she does a real good job of giving us both everything we need. I want to thank Dean Buck. He donated food this year. We gave Buffalo Wild Wings a little break, and Dino stepped in. I don't know what else to say. I consider it a very big success.
Yes.
And I'm sorry, I have one more thing. I'm sorry. We desperately need board members for the Board of Review. It will convene in March. We are looking at statutorily, we do not require as many sessions as we have held in historically, so we're looking to cut that down to a more manageable meeting schedule. So instead of 6 or 7 days, it's going to be more like 2 or 3 days, so that will be easier for people who are available during the day to make that commitment. So if you have any experience, if you know anyone with experience in assessing, real estate, that sort of thing, we really could use your services. Contact my office. And thank you.
Excellent.
I have a question on that. Is it just that period that you need those individuals? Or do they meet throughout the rest of the year at all?
Really, it's just 2 or 3 sessions during March, and they're long days. And then maybe once in December, July and December for corrections, and that's like a half-hour to an hour meeting.
Okay.
So the crux of the time is spent in March, and they go over petitions for exemptions from the assessments. They approve the assessment roll. And it's very much led by our finance director and our assessing team from Oakland County. So, you know, you get a lot of help along the way.
Thanks for that clarification.
You're very welcome. That is it.
All right. Chief Collins, anything from the police department this evening?
I have very little, Your Honor. We get through Halloween without any problems, thanks
Good.
to the weather.
Excellent.
We're working with the schools, with the school resource officer situation. We will probably be losing one of those positions through the loss of the DLC. Although we do have several retirements, so we will not have a reduction in manpower, but we will have a reduction in numbers of positions available for the new hires. I think Jenny is going to talk a little bit about the police officer recruitment, and we would like to sadly but happily announce the retirement of Sergeant Jones, whose last day will be Thursday, the 13th. We'll be giving him his traditional ride home. And we also had one of our officers resign to become a lawyer in Grand Rapids. Officer Bergnoli is currently just passed the bar just recently. He's been working. He moved to Grand Rapids. He's been commuting from Grand Rapids to Ferndale. Apparently his wife has decided to make him stop doing that. So his November 30th will be his last day. So, and like I said, Jenny will talk about the police officer recruitment, and we hope to replace all but one of those as we go forward. But thank you.
Good, thanks. Derek, anything else from economic development? All right. Jill, anything from the recreation department? Nothing. All right. Jenny, apparently there's something from the HR perspective. Thank you.
Good evening. I will try to be really quick. Couple announcements. Number one, we are still trucking along with our Health and Wellness Center. We have on the books our grand opening scheduled for January 21st. The time is to be determined, but it will be at the Health and Wellness Clinic. We intend on having a soft opening on the 12th of January with a ribbon cutting ceremony involving all of the communities on the 21st. So more information on that to come. As Chief Collins mentioned, we have recently relaunched our recruitment process for entry-level police officer. With some of the turnover we've had recently, it became very clear that we really need to widen and broaden our pool of candidates for that position. In this area, most all municipalities use EMPCO for their initial hiring model, which would include applicants who have already taken an exam that they have selected to take on their own, and then go on to their website and select all the communities that they, in a sense, want to be considered for. So we have changed our process to include that as our first step. That did go out into all of our local papers. Anyone interested in applying for that position, you do not have to be a licensed police officer to do that. You can visit their website at www.empco, that's empco.com, and there would be an initial test they would have to sign up and take. At that point, we would then contact those who have passed that test and move forward with the process from there. So it cuts a little bit of a few steps out of our process, saving us time and resources on the front end. So we're excited about that. We anticipate expanding our candidate pool drastically by utilizing this process. That's about it. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Christina, anything else from DDA? No? All right. Lloyd, anything from the DPW?
I'd like to take this opportunity to actually do a shout out to our residents and thank them for the cooperation we're getting for curbside leaf collection. It is truly amazing what's going on out there in the community. We're actually getting on some streets where there is absolutely no cars, which is a phenomenal feat, based on the parking situation in some neighborhoods. But this has literally taken some areas where we're doing leaf collection from a 2-day process to a 2-hour process. And so it is really making a difference in how we're able to keep up with the late leaf drop that we're getting this season. And although I'm more of a cheerleader sometimes with our crew, and so I do encourage them to get out there, get it done, and we track our complaints and our successes. But I found out Monday morning that their enthusiasm might be getting a little ahead of the game, in that I found out that when we were explaining the traffic situations and how some of the streets had and I said, okay, are you talking to the neighborhood, letting them know the signs are going out, et cetera. And there's some coordination as takes place, and there's a little bit of hiccup on the weekends because Sunday we're not here, but we'd like to put the signs out to get people on Monday to know where we're going to be. But anyway, I found out that they were going through the neighborhoods and laying on the air horns, letting people know. And I'm not, they claim it was very effective and nobody complained, but I'm not so sure that I'll allow that to continue. But so they've been rather enthusiastic and accomplishing their tasks sometimes. But again, I'd like to thank the residents. It's been very helpful for us in allowing us to be very efficient, save money, get to other neighborhoods more quickly. So thank you.
Good. Thank you. Chief Sullivan, anything from the fire department this evening?
Mayor, Council, a couple things. We recently took place in a chili cook-off in Detroit, a 10-alarm chili cook-off, which was head up by Charlie LeDuff from Channel 2 and Dean Bach. Although Channel 2 didn't credit Dean due to his own, I don't want to be out on the press part, Dino and his team did a lot of stuff. They were shooting for a $10,000 to $20,000 fundraiser for the Detroit Benevolent Fund with all the financial trouble in Detroit. There's several injured firefighters that they were cut off completely from medical and that. So they went from a $10,000 to $20,000. Before the event on Saturday morning, they already donated 40-something thousand to the Detroit Benevolent Fund. At the end of the event, they had well over $100,000. So it was a big, the reason I'm telling you is firefighter Jack Fichet, his wife Sarah, and myself and my son Jason were on the chili cooking team. And we were third, which was a non-trophy placing that. But we didn't add anything to our votes. Votes could be a ticket or $1. We received enough votes probably to have won the best chili down there. But Engine 41 and Dearborn were padding their votes with fundraising money, so they were several $100 or several hundred votes, over us. So somewhat like Chicago politics, apparently you need to buy the vote. Anyway, we had a good time down there, and it was a really excellent event, so I would say that next year look for it. Dino and team put out a good deal, and it was down in Corktown at the Corktown Tavern, which there's not a whole lot of buildings in the neighborhood anymore, so there's a lot of parking down there. If you need a place to park, it's pretty much anywhere on any empty lot. The next thing is it's coming up on that season. If people have not checked their furnaces, we do have furnace issues coming up, so it's a good idea to pay that $60-70 and get a expert furnace guy out there and check your furnace out and clean it well, because it looks like we could have a snowy weather coming around the corner here, even though I know Lloyd wants to get the leaves up before that starts.
Yeah.
And if it should hit, furnaces are running heavy in that. And again, watch inside heaters. If you're using electric heaters or kerosene heaters, please use UL tested heaters with safety switches, so if they get knocked over by the pets or whatever, the electric or the kerosene shuts off immediately. And always make sure you mark your kerosene cans. They're supposed to be in a different color, so you do not put gasoline in kerosene heaters, because that has caused several explosive moments in there. Also, another thing, if you notice anybody in vacant homes around the city or vacant properties, not that we have many, but over the weekend there was a huge explosion in Detroit. It was caused by scrappers. The scrapper pulled on a copper line thinking it was a water line and ended up pulling a gas line, severely burning himself. I don't know where the investigation is, but it's something we've always worried about when scrappers go in and steal lines. They leave gas leaks and water leaks in basements full of water, which we had in days gone by in Ferndale. But if you see anybody in a vacant house, it's a good idea to call the PD and let them check it out. So we do not have that. That took down 7 houses from the one house being scrapped. And those people did not have a lot, and they have nowhere to go. So just so we don't have any conflagration type explosions in the city, if anyone's in buildings they don't belong in, call the PD, and we'll make sure that they get out of there unless they have permission to be there or doing constructive work. That's it.
Hey, Chief, I got a question from a resident this week. What if they want to get their house tested for radon? What is their options?
I believe you can pick up radon testing kits at like Ace Hardware or any other type hardware store, and then it's a lab that you send into, and then that would come back to you, letting you know if you follow the instructions on the test. I haven't heard of many that we've had where people have called and complained about it or any issue there. More of an environmental issue, but
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Chief. So we've covered Cheryl Lynn, and we'll go to Joe Gauschow, who is ably filling in for April this evening as our city manager. Thanks, Joe.
I just wanted to remind our residents that City Hall is closed tomorrow in observance of Veterans Day. The Ferndale Memorial Association will be conducting a ceremony at 11 o'clock in the morning at the Memorial Mall, located on Livernois near West 9 intersection. I don't believe, Lloyd, can you confirm whether that will impact any curbside garbage collection pickups tomorrow? Your curbside garbage collection pickup will remain unscheduled. And second, just a reminder that the City Council's annual goal-setting session will be taking place this Saturday at the Kula Community Center between 9 a.m. and 2 p.m. This is Council's annual opportunity to evaluate the city and discuss how we're going to move forward for next year.
Excellent.
I have one question.
Yeah.
Can you give an update about FEMA, where we are with that?
Yeah, FEMA is still holding emergency management sessions down at the Kulik Center. They'll be there, from what my office has been told, through the end. I believe they're going to be extended through November 21st. I believe that I've been told that it will be extended. The SBA will be down there for the following week, still processing loans and still accepting loan applications from residents impacted by the flood.
Very good. Thank you. Dan, anything from the legal perspective? All right. Mayor Pro Tem Martin.
Other than saddened by Sherilyn's announcement, which we all heard, and I know we'll have a lot of time to say goodbye, but you do speak very highly of your work experience here, and I think I'll be the first of thousands to say what a great experience and impact you've had on the city, so thank you. And other than that, I'm good.
Thank you.
Councilman Polika.
Taking a cue from Councilman Martin, you are going to be very well missed. You are an incredible city clerk who has done immense work for the city and such positive changes. As someone who worked at the last election and the election before that, it is amazing how organized you have created our precincts, and everything works so smoothly. You are going to be missed, though, not just because of your work, but because of your wonderful personality and just who you are. You're just wonderful to work with, so I'm really going to miss you.
Thank you.
Anything else?
I do have a few things, but it feels like, anything I say after. Just kind of feeding off on the leaf pickup. If you live on a street that has one side parking, everybody keep your leaves on the opposite side so that you're not parking on leaves. This Friday, November 14th, from 8 to 10 p.m. at Soho, there's a fundraiser for Kevin Rogers, who's a longtime proprietor of Just For Us. Kevin is battling stage 4 melanoma, and he has always been a generous supporter of this community for many, many years, and now he needs our help. So he's struggling with some mounting debt because of medical costs. So if you would like, we'd really appreciate it if you come out this Friday, November 14th, 8 to 10 p.m. at Soho fundraiser. The Sunday, the 16th, from 6 to 7 p.m. at Dino's Lounge is Salon Sundays, which features the Joshua James Duo. This event is hosted and supports the Ferndale Arts and Cultural Commission. And that is all I have for tonight.
Excellent. Councilwoman Pollica. Councilwoman Piana.
Really wanted me to be you.
I know.
I swear, it's the peas, they throw me. Sorry, excuse me.
Well, I just wanted to say congratulations on your new opportunity, Sherilyn. You know how I feel. I sent you a private email.
Yes, thank you.
I'm one of the few council members who had the really on-site experience of working inside Ferndale City Hall as a tenant at the Michigan Suburbs Alliance. And so I got to see what Sherilyn's tasks were to help improve the city clerk's department. So you've done an amazing job.
Thank you.
So since you started here. So good luck. Not goodbye.
Thank
See you again. And I'm sure we'll see a Best City Clerk Award somewhere else, wherever you land.
Thank you.
Indeed. Anything else?
Nope, I'm good.
Yeah, we'll probably have lots to say between now and the end of the year, but first I want to just say thank you for everything that you've done. The city, you talk about it's elected, but the city is very fortunate to have the leadership that it does at the department level, and that certainly includes you, Sherilyn, and it will be a very difficult person to replace. And a lot of times when things are going right, we talk about that. But I'm also equally impressed when something doesn't go as well to how people address that. And I remember the presidential election a few years ago where there were some snafus and some lines, and the way that you took, without council forcing or prodding you, how you took the initiative and really very candidly and honestly and aggressively addressed those was a testament to your professionalism, and I appreciate that. So we'll love on you more till the end of the year, but thank you for everything that you've done. And that is all I have, and so with that, the meeting is adjourned.